Okay, here we are. We are going through the last week in the life and the ministry of Jesus. It's called Holy Week, traditionally. All kinds of people call it that. The Bible doesn't call it Holy Week. The Bible just gives the events and the sequence of events. And different gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they give different details, different color to it, expand some of the things that were going on, and some speak a little bit less of it. But when we take all of the gospel writers together, we get a pretty good picture of what was going on in that last week of the life and the ministry of Jesus. And the week really goes from Sunday to Sunday. It goes from what today we call Palm Sunday. There's the palms. It's what we call it today, Palm Sunday, looking backwards at what happened there, going all the way to the following Sunday, which we call Easter. Well, that's traditionally what they call it, and there's a lot of argument about whether you should call it Easter or not, and, is that taken from some pagan holidays? And yeah, maybe not, but it's what people call it. It's really the day of the resurrection. So if you want to make a big deal of it, it's fine with me. It doesn't bother me at all, but I call it that just because it's common to people's understanding, and they seem to understand that Easter is something religious, something about Jesus. Maybe not, but that's what we exist for. The holiday comes around, and there's lots of opportunity to talk about the holiday, and in the workplace to correct it, to tell people, Easter, and you can even say, Easter comes from this sort of pagan name. It really has nothing to do with the Bible, because Easter really is a biblical day that's celebrated. And it's okay to celebrate. It's good to celebrate. Good to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we are looking at that whole week. Let's get back to that. Why get caught up in all of these little details? So what we're going to do is every day we will be going through what happens that day in that last week of the life and the ministry of Jesus. So I'm reading out of Mark 11, if you want to follow along. And we're going to pick up on Sunday, and we're going to move right into Monday with Mark. So as Jesus and his disciples, approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage in Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples out. And he said, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find a colt there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And if anyone asks you, 'What are you doing?' say that the Lord has need of it, and we'll send it back here shortly." So they do this. This is to fulfill the prophecy in Zechariah. Zechariah is a messianic prophet in many parts. He speaks a lot about Jesus and what would happen with Jesus and what would happen in his ministry, in his life, and in his death. So what are Jesus and his disciples doing in the city of Jerusalem? Well, this is the fourth appearance that we have of Jesus coming into the city of Jerusalem. The first time is when he's dedicated at the temple, and we have that account early on. And then he shows up 3 times with his disciples in the city of Jerusalem. And the first time he comes, he makes a little bit of a ruckus, trying to figure out who he is and what's going on. The second time he comes in, there's quite a bit of controversy around Jesus and this little band of believers that he has following with him. The third time he comes in, it's a real issue. His ministry has been gaining a lot of steam. The religious leaders are turning against him. And so that's what happens in this last week of the life and the ministry of Jesus. He's going to the cross. So there they get the colt. They found the colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. They untied it, and some people standing there said, "Hey, what are you doing untying that colt?" And they answered like Jesus told them, and the people let them go. Hey, Jesus is making quite a splash. They understand some things about Jesus. that he raises the dead, that he gives sight to the blind, that the religious leaders don't like him. A lot of people believe that he's going to be the king of Israel. You see, because Jesus comes from the family tree of the kings of Israel. So he could have sat on the throne of the Israel king, and they wanted a new king. They wanted a king to throw off the oppression of Rome. They were tired of serving Rome. They were tired of paying taxes to Rome. They were tired of being under Rome's thumb. And so many of them were just waiting for Jesus to go sit on that throne and throw Rome right over their backs. And so they answered as Jesus had told them, and the people let him go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. And many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches that they had cut in the fields. And those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, Hosanna. Hosanna means save now. So they're looking for political freedom. Just like people in many nations today, there's a lot of stuff going on where people are looking for political freedom. Some people are trying to hold on to the freedoms they feel like they're losing. And so save now and get us out of this mess is the call of a lot of people throughout history, and it was the call of them there. You see, they're mixing it up because they think that this is a king for national freedom, when really it's a king for spiritual freedom, and a king who's going to be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and rule over all of creation, which belongs to him anyway. So Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Oh, right, the kingdom of David. You see, when David ruled, they loved it when David ruled because he'd conquered the enemies on every side. And then Solomon makes silver like rocks in the city of Jerusalem. Just a wonderful time. And they're looking for that time to go back to the way that Jerusalem was in the day. Hosanna in the highest. Bless this king. We love this king. Jesus entered Jerusalem. He went into the temple courts. Well, that's the place of worship. In the temple courts, there's a temple that is a court there called the court of the Gentiles, where the Gentiles didn't go into the temple and do a lot of the temple things, but a lot of them would gather around because they're drawn to what's going on. They're drawn to the presence of God there. And so Jesus goes into the temple courts, and he looks around at everything, and since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. So he looks around. Jesus is thinking about what's going on. I can tell you what's going on. It's a bunch of religious nonsense. They're buying and selling. You see, people had to bring sacrifices. And if you're going to walk 100 miles, you don't want to bring these animal sacrifices with you, so you bring money. And then when you get there, you find out that your money's not that good because the money changers are really charging exorbitant rates in order to exchange the money. And so all kinds of things, religious trinkets and nonsense going on, and they can't worship because there's just a bunch of vendors around. So Jesus looks around and considers these things. We get to Monday. So now it's Monday. That's where we are. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found out it had. He found nothing but leaves because it was not the season for figs. And then he said to the tree, "May no one eat the fruit from you again." And the disciples heard him say this. You see, the picture here is that Jesus is looking for fruit. He's looking for fruit from the people of Israel, the people who should have been expecting him, the people who should have known what was going to come on. But over and over again, Jesus gave these parables of the king comes looking for fruit from the people that he had brought into the land and given them the land, and then was their king, and then they asked for a king, and he gave them these kings. He's looking for fruit, but there is no fruit. I hope that's not true of our lives, that he's looking for fruit and doesn't find it. But that's another story. That's what we're looking at here. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise in through the temple courts. Get out of here. Get that junk out of here. Get those trinkets out of here. And he taught them, and he said, "Is not it written that my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations?" This is quoting from Isaiah. "But you've made it a den of robbers." And so when Jesus cleanses the temple, something happens. Chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this, and they began looking for a way to kill him because they feared him, and the crowd was amazed at his teaching. Well, what it tells us in Matthew is that when Jesus cleared the temple and got rid of all of the money changers and all of the religious and all of the religious confusion and all of the religious trinkets and all of the ripping people off in the name of religion, that it said the blind and the lame came to him and he healed them. So Jesus is always getting rid of the religion, getting rid of all of this traditional stuff that doesn't mean anything about anything. And he's healing the people. He's doing what he does best, healing and touching people. And so when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. And so what you'll see there is the next line says in the morning. So we will pick it up in the morning. We'll move on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then into Sunday. So there we have it. Let's go day by day with what's going on in this Holy Week, the last week in the life and the ministry of Jesus. Hey, love you guys. Let's journey through Holy Week together. Bless you.